Acknowledgement of country. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I am Nomad. Look out for trivia questions in this video. The presenters for this episode are Nomad, Sebastian and Margaret. If you have been following along, you would know everyone.
As we dive into this subject relating to convicts, we briefly discussed the first arrivals in the last episode where we discussed first fleeters. This was only the beginning. Is this another part of Australia's dark history?
Before we get started, word of warning. Be aware that some of what you read not just in one site but all of convict details may be confronting. Language from the past is very different to what is used today. Please take care of yourself. If at any time you find what you are reading is too overwhelming, stop, go and do something that is completely different. Remember, you are reading about history and you cannot change it.
Why were these individuals, male and female including children, sent from various locations mostly from around Britain to begin a life in Australia? We will be discussing this shortly as the story unfolds.
Our question as to why becomes interesting. What did these individuals do to be sent for periods of 7 and 14 years to a land so far across the seas?
We need to start with those 11 ships that arrived as part of the First Fleet back in January 1788. As advised in our previous episode, we mentioned the arrival of 6 ships carrying convicts that left England in May 1787. These ships held in total 796 convicts, 600 males and 196 females. We will be delving into these convicts in more detail shortly.
As you can imagine, we will not be discussing every convict that arrived on the First Fleet. Besides these 796 souls, there were about another 163,000 convicts who arrived on these shores between 1788 and 1868, 80 years. In that time, transported on over 800 ships.
To understand more about these individuals who were forced to make the long sea voyage from what they knew to the unknown in a desolate land without towns, villages, or even farmland as they knew it, we need to understand why. We will use 3 examples from convicts on the First Fleet. We will be using information taken from websites titled Convict Records and the Old Bailey Online.
Please note, this is not, we stress not, the way to do research. Just because there is a convict with your surname does not mean they are related to you.
Example 1. Margaret Darnell. Old Bailey Record. Margaret Darnell theft shoplifting. The 18th of April 1787. Margaret Darnell was indicted for stealing, on the 30th day of March last, 1 dozen of dessert knives and forks, value 6 shillings, the property of James White privily in his shop. James White sworn. Convict Records. Margaret was born in 1766. Found guilty theft T20 larceny, sent to Middlesex jail delivery and transported on Prince of Wales. Departure. The 31st of March 1787. Arrival. Date the 22nd of January 1788.
Example 2. Robert Forrester. Old Bailey Record. Robert Forrester theft. Theft from a specified place. The 30th of April 1783. Robert Forrester, indicted for feloniously stealing on the 20th of April last, 6 pieces of gold coin of this realm, called guineas, value £6 and 6 shillings. The property of Simon Hughes in the dwelling house of Letitia Coleman, widow. Simon Hughes sworn. Convict Records. Robert was born in 1758, found guilty theft, larceny, convicted at Central Criminal Court. Sentenced 7 years, transported on Scarborough. Departure the 31st of March 1786. Arrival date the 22nd of January 1788. Notes: 2 other ships are mentioned and departure date is incorrect.
Example 3. John Best. Old Bailey Record. John Best. Theft, burglary. 29th of October, 1783. John Best was indicted for burglariously and feloniously breaking and entering the dwelling house of John Helly. On the 9th of September last, about the hour of 10 in the night, and feloniously stealing therein 1 pair of leather saddlebags, value 10 shillings, 4 linen shirts, value 30. Convict Records. John was born in 1757. Found guilty burglary, housebreaking. Convicted at the Old Bailey. Sentence 7 years. Transported on Friendship. Departure 13 May, 1787. Arrival date 23rd January 1788.
You may have noticed information shown on the Convict Records website appears to have discrepancies. This points to you having to check and recheck details, as well as using reliable sources in your research.
Okay, before we move on, we will begin to answer the question. What did these individuals do? Look at what each person was convicted of and you see theft. Now, you will be asking, what did they take? You can venture down the rabbit hole if you wish to find out more. But before you do that, ask yourself, why do that?
These examples all relate to New South Wales. Again, the question that arises is why New South Wales? The answer is in when did the other states come into existence? All of this will come to light when discussing each state.
Some may ask, how do you know you have convict ancestry? Remember the process we described back in episode 3. Start with yourself and move backwards. You may be lucky to strike a direct convict ancestor. If you have delved into siblings, you may have found a convict here.
Okay, you think you have found your convict in your tree, so what's next? This question will be answered in a moment.
Forget the moment. Let's do it now. To begin with, you need to ensure your research has been correct and thorough. All your findings have been sourced and documented. From here, you should have a number of records providing the following details: age, approximate date of birth, a marriage, and maybe death information. Using all of this, you will be able to establish the state where you are to begin your search. We will be visiting these state sites, stating what is available and what may be found.
Once you have located a record, you will be able or should be able to connect back to the ship they arrived on and possible details of where they began their journey.
You may also find more details about them and why they ended up on a free ride to Australia. Free may not be the most appropriate word, however, you will understand more from your research findings.
Okay, let's get started. We will begin with national records, and we begin with the National Library of Australia. This facility has a very good convict research guide. Within the guide, you will find tips on how to locate your convict ancestor. As we have already stated, you need to have completed your research that may show you have a convict ancestor. Then, and only then, do you proceed with your investigations. For a start, you would need to know their arrival date and where they landed. Shortly, you will see what each state has in relation to resources available.
The National Museum Australia provides context on convicts. The link we have provided is a digital classroom. It provides a snapshot providing a brief insight into the numbers, the why and the what happened. One interesting item we found was what was it like to be a child convict, and a 33-minute audio podcast. Hey History, Episode 3, Convict Kids. It provides an insight into what life was like and why children were transported. Scroll down further on the page to find related sources. Also on the museum website, it shows details relating to transportation peaking in 1833. Investigating further down the page, there are details explaining more about the how, why, and when. Go off and explore and discover.
A note about the National Archives of Australia. It primarily holds post-1900 records and federal government archives.
As we continue our journey into state records, you may notice that not every state had direct transportation of convicts. We will be commencing with New South Wales for obvious reasons. The first convicts to arrive here were on the First Fleet in 1788.
New South Wales. As you would be aware, convicts began arriving from 1788. This stopped in 1850. Start out at the State Archives collections. Here you will find a list of available collections. On the page it displays guides, indexes, articles and webinars. We chose Convicts Index 1791 to 1873. As an example, you can do a search of the index. You may need to visit reading rooms to view the full record details. As we always say, look around the site as you never know what you may find. Scrolling down on this webpage, you will come across related resources. The source we found was Convict Assignment Records. On this page, you will find a How to Guide an overview, record indexes, and toward the bottom of the page are more details relating to convicts. We will not be going into these, but encourage you to go have a look.
On the New South Wales Library website, there is a family history guide, Convicts Bound for Australia. You will find a vast amount of information on the webpage. On the left-hand side of the page, it tells you about the guide and other useful information and resources. Put your detective hats on and go searching. There is a lot of information to take in, so be careful of the rabbit holes you may venture down. As we have said in the past, have a research question and stick to it. Any side events, take a note and go back later.
When you are in the New South Wales records, do not forget about Norfolk Island. To locate convict records here, we head off to the State Archives collection to locate them. Again, you will find guides, indexes, articles, and webinars.
Van Diemen's Land or Tasmania. Convicts arrived in Van Diemen's Land between 1803 to 1853. Delving into Library's Tasmania website, you can begin in the family history area, then scroll down to find convict heritage. Our link takes you direct to the Convicts in Van Diemen's Land, now Tasmania webpage. Here you will find a convict portal map, convict records guide, before transportation, convict life, freedom, convict landscape, and conviction politics. You know what we will be saying for sure? Yes, rabbit holes. Some details about the convict portal map. When you click on the coloured squares or circles, you are provided with details about what is at that location. We found it useful in understanding things more.
If you have located a convict who was transported to Tasmania, you will need to use the Tasmania Name Index. We highlighted this site in the Australian Records Part 2 in Episode 10. We have provided the landing page for this index.
Before we leave Van Diemen's Land, we need to mention a couple of penal settlements which we mentioned in an earlier episode. The two mentioned were Macquarie Harbour and Port Arthur. There is also another which gets a mention, Maria Island. Macquarie Harbour and Maria Island are now run by Tasmania Parks and Wildlife Service.
The main settlement at Macquarie Harbour was Sarah Island, located on the west coast. This settlement was established as a secondary punishment site between 1822 and 1833. About 1,500 convicts served time here, including about 30 women. One interesting fact, a productive colonial shipyard functioned here.
Maria Island, located on the east coast, operated between 1825, closing in 1832 but reopened again in 1842 as a probation station before closing in 1850. Convicts worked across several industries: timber cutting, tanning, shoemaking, and cloth production. An interesting fact about this settlement is it featured a mechanized, water-powered textile factory.
Port Arthur Penal Settlement was established in 1830 on the Tasman Peninsula, replacing both Macquarie Harbour and Maria Island. The area was largely isolated and had large resources of timber, sandstone, and dolerite. The settlement housed roughly 12,500 male convicts until it closed in 1877. A strict regime was imposed with corporal punishment administered being commonplace. Daily work involved ganged labor to skilled work in shipyards and workshops. As part of the activities, scholastic and religious instructions were aimed at reformation and economic productivity. After transportation ended in 1853, the convict population declined. Due to the aging population, the paupers' barracks and asylum were constructed in the 1860s.
Bushfires in 1895 and 1897 caused destruction to the site. A number of ruins were reserved in 1916, becoming the first designated historic sites in Australia. In 1971, Port Arthur was declared a historic site. Today, it remains one of Australia's most significant and visited historical landmarks. Western Australia received convicts between 1850 to 1868, mostly as the state needed labourers. If you have a convict ancestor that entered Western Australia, follow the breadcrumbs to the State Records Office of Western Australia. Search for convicts. You may have to scroll down the page. We found convicts as the first choice. Our link takes you direct to the page. This office holds comprehensive record sets covering transportation between 1850 and 1868. Now, scroll down on the page and make your selection. Use the Show Me. Provides further details.
Victoria broke away from New South Wales in 1851 whilst Queensland did in 1859. There was no direct convict transportation to either Victoria or Queensland.
However, there were settlements set up in Victoria. The first attempt at Sullivan Bay near Sorrento was abandoned after 2 months. There were convicts who escaped, but the rest were sent on to Hobart. The second attempt lasted less than 2 years and all convicts were returned to Sydney.
In Queensland, a penal settlement was established in 1824 and operated till 1842. The settlement at Moreton Bay was used as a place for reoffending convicts. There are convict records for Queensland. These are held at the State Archives and the State Library. The State Archives have a collection titled Convicts and Early Settlers. Scroll down the page to locate the areas of interest. Follow any instructions and hopefully you locate what you are after.
South Australia was founded in 1836 as a free colony as part of an experimental British colony. It was the only Australian colony that did not officially take convicts. Check out the State Library, South Australia, for details.
Before we leave the States, there are 2 important facilities to be mentioned. These relate to women convicts. The first is in New South Wales at the Parramatta Female Factory. Within the State Archives collection currently has 3 guide, indexes and a webinar area. We suggest you commence with the guide so you know what to expect. Many of you may be asking, what is the Female Factory? Very quick answer is that the female convicts were engaged in making things and a smaller number involved as servants, midwives, nurses, and caring for orphans. The second is in Van Diemen's Land called the Cascades Female Factory. The website is rich in the history of how female convicts were treated within the facility. We suggest that you check out Life in the Cascades Female Factory under the History tab.
When you began looking into the state records, you may have some common questions popping up in your head. One big question is, why were they sent to Australia? To answer this question, we will need to have a very brief, and I do mean very brief, look at just a snippet of British history.
You need to look at the broader picture to understand what was going on in Britain at the time. The Industrial Revolution from around the 1760s had an input into the decline of rural base activities. This in turn caused the population to move into cities. This flow-on effect created more issues within the cities becoming overcrowded. From here this led to idle hands and crime rose. The increase in this led to prisons being overcrowded. To resolve this, ships were used as storage points for prisoners.
Britain's loss of America as their go-to point causing further issues. Cook's exploration of the South Seas in 1770 led to the colonization of the east coast of Australia in 1788. Who would populate the vast land? Yes, those who were stored in those ships known as hulks would be transported with sentences of 7 and 14 years. This created story is probably not exact. However, the reasons behind why Australia became a penal colony for the British is, the rest, shall we say, is history.
Convicts were sent as punishment for crimes committed in Britain and Ireland, often serving their sentences as laborers or servants for the new colony.
Before we leave convicts, there are some other websites you may find of interest. We will very briefly discuss them before we end this part of the episode.
This website is about 12-minute read about British convicts to Australia. It provides background information and may add context to your convict story. We added this for this particular reason. Your stories are important and so is the context.
Irish connections. When doing our research, we came across Irish connections. If you have an Irish convict, you should check out this site. Upon entering the site, you will see it headed Ireland Australia Transportation Records. We will let you explore the site.
Rabbit holes. Throughout the series, we have been mentioning rabbit holes. If you have not heard this term previously, we will attempt to explain what is meant.
The definition of a rabbit hole by Cambridge Dictionary states: 1. A hole in the ground dug by a rabbit. 2. A complicated or difficult situation, especially one that is difficult to get out of. 3. A situation in which you become so interested in a subject or an activity that you just cannot stop trying to find out about it or doing it. By now, I am very positive you know which meaning we will be using in our discoveries within our family history research.
Let's dive into a real rabbit hole. We came across an issue that is still unresolved. Here it is and how it began. When researching how many convicts were sent to Australia by ship, we wanted to clarify how many ships transported all these convicts.
We began asking the question in Google, as nearly every family historian. It is the go-to place when starting this type of research. As you may be aware, now you get an AI review, followed by the details of websites that may hold the desired results and the source to the answer.
Our findings came up with responses from 800 to around 860. We sat with our thoughts of over 800.
Further to the answer, we were unable to locate a source. Dig deeper was our mind's response. You may be wondering why it's important. Within our series, we have always encouraged backing up research with sources. You may have noticed this, especially in our last few episodes.
Another question you may have: what is the issue with the number of ships or journeys? Oops, here we go, down another rabbit hole. Explanation. There is 163,000 convicts who arrived over 80 years. So, we get over 2,030 a year, 12 months in a year gives us about 170 a month we've now gone. Stop, stop, stop. This is starting to look like my tree.
The issue arose when we looked at the ships mentioned on the Convict Records website. It has listed 521 named ships. You may have not even noticed this. When looking at the ships, here you find that they did not just do one trip, some did 3 or 4. Now, back to our question. Is it 800 ships, or 800 voyages, or is it none of these? Rabbit holes are plenty attempting to resolve this issue.
Okay, this example is an unusual one, but bear with us as this happens during our research. When doing any research, we need to be aware that in the blink of an eye you can end up somewhere else because 1. You could not find what you are after, or 2. Found something a lot more interesting. This is the dangerous rabbit hole. You think I'll just have a quick look. It won't take too long. Before you have realized, many hours have passed. What you wanted to know when you started has long gone, and maybe even forgotten. Didn't you write a research question and record it on your research log?
Rabbit holes, how to deal with them and stay focused. Have your question and stick to it, knowing you will come across something more interesting. Stop. Make a note of your lovely shiny object and go back to your question. That shiny object will still be there, but you may never find it again.
A question before we finish up this episode. Did you attempt to resolve the ship voyage issue or...
How about this one? During our investigations as we began to finish this episode, this happened. Like most things, out of the blue. Try the Australian National Maritime Museum. All you need to do is begin a search. From the home page, select Search. Enter our search, Convicts on the First Fleet. You will notice 94 results are found. Off you go. Enjoy the adventure. Down one big rabbit hole.
Rabbit holes, rabbit holes, rabbit holes. They will always be there.
That's it for this episode. A lot of information again. If you do not have a convict, then you can skip it, but what if? Oops. You know, rabbit holes. Next time, we shall be discovering our handwritten charts by using all our findings to date. We will be using various resources like our certificate collection, our research logs, and our pedigree chart. We will see you in 2 weeks. Remember, have fun and enjoy exploring. Well, maybe not rabbit holes. With all of us here, we would be delighted for you to join our family. I am sure you know the drill. Click like, subscribe, and of course, please make a comment.